Every once in a while, a fitness influencer with a monstrous physique comes along and takes the internet by storm.
What do you think of Sam Sulek?
Oh man, what do I think of Sam Sulek?
Isn't it crazy that just being jacked could get you millions of subscribers now?
2.3 million subscribers on YouTube.
In regards to like Sam Sulek.
Me, Paul, came down to Columbus to meet up with Sam Sulek. Is it Sulek or Sulek? Sulek.
Sam Sulek is known for his workout videos where his impressive body, strength, and down-to-earth personality are on full display. Now, no one is denying that what he can do in the gym is impressive, but as you'd expect, his rise to prominence has attracted a healthy mix of praise, criticism, and, well, flat-out concern, bro.
Guys using steroids younger than ever before. And you can hate me if you want, but I do believe that the influence of Sam
Why is Sam Sulek doing half reps? Is this actually effective for muscle growth?
I think he's like in his early 20s, so he probably doesn't give a flying about staying super healthy.
Today, I will contribute to this conversation from a nuanced medical perspective. And with a little luck, we'll continue to deepen our understanding of human anatomy, as well as the complex social and societal factors that might also affect it. We will touch on Sam's age, diet, training intensity, and technique. And of course, the rather large elephant in the room, his PED usage. To my knowledge, Sam has not yet spoken publicly about this, but...
Bro, you can hear the steroids in his voice. It's like he's gargling in steroids.
5 plates on there.
And it helps that he's like sauced to the tits. Yeah.
Absolutely sauced it. Jacked.
Unsurprisingly, the internet is in pretty unanimous agreement that his physique is in fact fueled by something more than just caloric surplus. And I mean, the shoe definitely fits. Steroid use and abuse is a serious concern that I've covered in depth in several other videos, which you may want to queue up to watch later. That being said, it may come as a surprise to you that I don't intend to dwell for too long on this topic today, as I have some other insights I feel the need to share. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think PED usage education is extremely important, since it definitely comes with risks. But I can sum those risks up in 3 or 4 minutes. Someone time me. In adult males, the most prevalent risks associated with steroid use and abuse include hormonal imbalances leading to decreased natural testosterone production, infertility, increased risk of heart disease by way of high blood pressure and atherosclerosis, liver damage, mood swings, aggression, and in some cases, psychiatric disorders. Additionally, there's a heightened potential for dependency and addiction, as well as the development of physical changes like gynecomastia, enlarged breast tissue, and baldness.
I'm not really an acne-prone person. I've had a bit of gyno, but which is where you have inflammation of like the nipple, which isn't really that big of a deal, to be honest with you.
Of these symptoms, high blood pressure, atherosclerosis, which both contribute to an increased risk of heart disease, are the most concerning, because they could put you, well, 6 feet underground. Steroids can lead to an increase in blood pressure, or hypertension, due to their impact on the retention of sodium and water in the body. And prolonged elevation of blood pressure can strain the heart and blood vessels, increasing the risk of heart disease, stroke, and other cardiovascular complications. Atherosclerosis is a condition characterized by the buildup of plaque in the arteries, leading to their narrowing and potential blockage. Anyone know what happens when vital organs aren't supplied with enough fresh blood? Yeah, and unfortunately, steroid use, especially in high doses or over prolonged periods, can contribute to this condition by altering lipid profiles, increasing LDL cholesterol, which is a building block for atherosclerotic plaque. Both chronic hypertension and atherosclerosis can wreak havoc on the heart and cardiovascular system, but steroids also might lead to an increase in the size and thickness of the heart muscle and its individual components, a condition called cardiac hypertrophy. And yes, the heart is a freaking muscle. This could impair contraction and relaxation abilities and disrupt the delicate balance of the heart's electrical system, potentially causing arrhythmias or irregular heartbeats, or even severe cardiac events like sudden cardiac arrest. Now, We could stop there, but the story is potentially even worse for teenagers. Since their bodies are still developing, steroid use can disrupt normal growth patterns, stunt height, cause premature closure of growth plates, and lead to irreversible physical changes. Hormonal imbalances during this crucial period can result in severe and lasting consequences, including fertility issues, cardiovascular problems, mood disorders, and even increased susceptibility to certain cancers. All of that on top of everything else we just talked about. Sounds to me like just don't do it.
Don't do it! Just don't do it!
But hey, what do I know? Did I mention that the negative effects of PEDs are also cumulative? That is, the longer, more often, and higher dosage you use, the worse the health implications will generally be. And time. How did we do? So obviously, PEDs are no joke, especially for younger people with bodies and brains that are still developing, and perhaps a propensity to impulsive behavior. Can I get teenagers for 500? Now, Sam Sulek is currently 21 years old, and though he hasn't said so outright, it's likely he started using PEDs in his teenage years, judging by the extremity of his transformation alone. And it's also possible that his usage is on the liberal side, as Joe and Derek of More Plates, More Dates pointed out.
Absolutely sauced it. Jacked.
He is likely at elevated risk of the aforementioned conditions, and that risk will only increase over time. And yet, I get the feeling that even if I were to sit face to face with Sam Sulek and rattle off an exhausted list of the potential complications of steroid use and abuse, he would carry on using. I'm sure the same would be true for many of the young people who hope to follow in his or other bodybuilders' footsteps, and even for people who just hope to improve their physique. Which leaves me as a healthcare provider with quite the conundrum. I truly do not know that a deeper understanding of the risks would deter young people from using PEDs. So today, I want to consider other often overlooked factors that may have a greater influence on why people are willing to put their health at risk in order to improve said physique. Maybe Sam can help us get the ball rolling. In his interview with Fouad Abiad and Paul Lozon on the Real Bodybuilding podcast, he shared his raison d'etre.
My main goal, even this whole time back when I was 180, 190, right, was to eventually compete, right, turn pro.
Sam is someone who hopes to become a pro bodybuilder, a goal that he has held since the very beginning of his lifting journey as a teenager. The thing is, steroid use is damn near mandatory for those hoping to be competitive in many of the most popular bodybuilding categories. That means, if a young person wants to compete, at some point, it's likely they will be taking steroids. And even those that don't plan to compete, but that want to improve their physique, are drawn to PED usage. Who is at fault? It would be easy to wag a finger at Sam, and I've heard it said that he is a bad influence on young aspiring lifters, and might increase the likelihood of them turning to PEDs.
I do believe that the influence of Sam Sulek and others such as Chris Bumstead are making steroid abuse more prevalent than ever before.
In response to this point, perhaps it would be useful to consider the prevalence of PED use over time. Dr. Jen Kanayama and Dr. Harrison G. Pope Jr. wrote in a 2017 article in Molecular and Cellular Endocrinology that the use of androgens, frequently referred to as anabolic androgenic steroids, or AAS, has grown into a worldwide substance abuse problem over the last several decades. To me, the key word is grown, as obviously they found that the trend is, and has been, upwards. They go on to explain. Testosterone was isolated in the 1930s, and numerous synthetic androgens were quickly developed thereafter. Athletes soon discovered the dramatic anabolic effects of these hormones, and AAS spread rapidly through elite athletics and bodybuilding from the 1950s through the 1970s. However, it was not until the 1980s that widespread AAS use emerged from the elite athletic world and into the general population. Since their invention, steroids spread first through the world of athletes and bodybuilders, and today, the great majority of AAS users are not competitive athletes, but instead are typically young to middle-aged men who use these drugs primarily for personal appearance.
He does look in the mirror a lot of times a day, and it really does mean a lot to him what he looks like.
Can Sam, or any other popular bodybuilder, really be considered causal in the spreading of a phenomenon that seems to be occurring independent of them? Let me ask another question. If someone who is impressed by Sam's physique decides to take PEDs, do you think that if Sam were gone, they wouldn't do so? They still might become impressed with someone else. Maybe Chris Bumstead, Derek Lunsford, Phil Heath, or Ramon Dino. But I'm not blaming them either, since if they were gone, I believe this statement would still hold true. The problem is that it is possible for young men to become enamored with a physique to the point that they are actually willing to put their health at risk in order to transform their bodies. The implied value hierarchy places physique above optimal long-term health. Where might this value hierarchy have been established? Well, it's hard for me to overlook the fact we live in a society where there is objectively a lot to be gained from having an impressive physique, and a lot to be suffered for those whose physique is less than admirable. Think about Jonah Hill regularly asking his fans to stop body shaming him versus Chris Bumstead, who recently cracked 20 million Instagram followers. But that's just one example that comes to mind. In our world, the stage is set for a very complex interaction between physical, psychological, social, and societal influences. There are innumerable reasons someone might want to build a more impressive physique. Some want to be more attractive, to silence a bully, or to feel more powerful, while others want to master the mind and body, overcome some deep-seated insecurity, or maybe lifting or getting a pump just feels good to them, and it isn't any deeper than that. The fact remains, many people are drawn to bodybuilding in spite of the damage it could cause them. They still do it when the evidence clearly suggests it might be dangerous to do so. And yes, I do think many who take steroids are aware of this fact. Many decide to pursue a world-class physique with full knowledge of the risks. Sam Sulek is just one person in a long-standing tradition. The tradition of being inspired by something or someone to get absolutely yoked, bro.
The guys I was looking up to, Kevin LeBron, those guys way back, like Flex Wheeler, like they're huge, 20-something inch arms, but their waist was trim.
I also want to point out that humans are hard programmed for survival, hence our fight or flight instincts. And in most cases, when we do something that puts the body at risk, that something serves a deep-seated desire or need.
So it's more like, as much mass as possible, but keeping that classic look.
You can be sure that having as much mass as possible while keeping that classic look does indeed fulfill a deep-seated desire or need for Sam. And as amenable as many young men are to following in his footsteps, I'd wager that many young men subconsciously share the same desire or need. I don't know what their proverbial need is per se. I'm not a psychologist.
I am a surgeon!
But the trend is pretty clear, and I can't consider the physical realm as separate from the psychological or social components at play. Now, we also need to acknowledge that the purpose of bodybuilding is not health and longevity. It involves the maintenance of a very stringent lifestyle, as well as pushing the body to and even beyond its physical capacity on a recurring basis.
This might just be because I'm still a college student, but it's got a special place for me. This is not an uncommon breakfast for me.
This is not at all what health is. And if we use the argument that what bodybuilders are doing is unhealthy in order to discourage people from bodybuilding, then we misunderstand this fact. We're barking up the wrong proverbial tree. They want to be freaks. And in many cases, health is a secondary priority, if even in the conversation at all.
Now I still have a couple weeks left in the cut, so this is gonna get a whole lot freakier.
We may instead, and this is the crux of this video, want to consider working to rewire our societal priorities so that they invite a less reckless, more health-focused lifestyle. As it stands right now, our society clearly values physical prowess. Just think of your favorite superheroes, the comic book traditions from whence they came, how popular bodybuilders such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and C-Bum have become, or even the massive success of bodybuilding adjacent buff guys like The Rock or Henry Cavill. Or if we stretch even further, consider our fascination with the latest first-round draft picks, their size, strength, and speed, or degree to which we are wrapped by the NFL, UFC, or the Olympic Games. And yes, I know not everyone I mentioned is jacked to the freaking tits, but with these examples, I only mean to call attention to our preoccupation with the physical body. Kim Kardashian and the rise of plastic surgery would serve to make my point just as well. But let's get back to the muscles. One might say,
I don't actually think any of that is attractive.
But saying that, to me, denotes an important misunderstanding. Attractiveness isn't even a prerequisite for success, necessarily. If a person or thing sufficiently captures your attention, that is to say, if it makes you look, then it can be monetized. We live in an attention economy after all. Which means that if Sam Sulek, or any other bodybuilder for that matter, can make you look longer than you might at someone else, they are valuable from an economic perspective. How attractive they are to you, notwithstanding. So why are young people turning to steroids? TLDR. Because as a society, one might even say as a species, naturally allowing our attention to be captured by things that are physically impressive. And in an attention-based economy, a person with a standout physique stands to gain a lot. Self-worth, self-confidence, financial success, social opportunity, the list is essentially endless here. Those in pursuit of a standout physique may have consciously or subconsciously decided that the upside outweighs the danger involved. It pains me to say, but there are in fact many real benefits to reckless behavior. As someone who has been inspired to pursue an inherently dangerous career in bodybuilding, can I realistically expect Sam to be giving sound advice related to health and longevity? One thing I found interesting in his interview with Fouad and Paul was just how open-minded Sam was whenever Fouad took a critical tone.
One of the things that's going to beat up your joints more than anything is going into the gym and your first exercise being a heavy squat or a heavy bench press.
For context, Sam was talking about hitting heavy, hard exercises first after warm-up. Fouad is pushing back against what Sam typically does, direct criticism. And to be honest, I was surprised to see how receptive and attentive Sam was.
Joints aren't warm, your muscles aren't warm, like nothing's really ready. Even if you've done some mobility work, I don't feel like it's the most advantageous for long-term joint health.
This is one of several instances where Fouad offers direct pushback. And in each case, Sam was receptive enough to convince me that he is relatively open-minded and surprisingly not defensive about his techniques and habits. But then, on his social media, he has posted memes like,
I don't see.
Trapping on motherfucking B-roll. I was your friend in the window. That's your stuff like winter. And your passion.
These posts seem to portray a higher degree of arrogance than what he displayed in the podcast. When taken at face value alongside his questionable eating habits and hard-nosed lifting footage, it doesn't paint the best picture. And understandably, these posts have rubbed some people the wrong way. Does he mean what he's saying? Is he reckless and arrogant? And if not, why the disconnect? But if we look beyond the edgy meme humor, he seems to be only interested in taking advice from people with extensive experience or expertise in his chosen realm of physique building. I'd wager that he'd at least listen to Chris Bumstead, or legendary coach Hanny Rambod, or in this case, Fouad.
One of the things that you're in a position that you might not realize is you have a massive fan base. And I think that fan base is looking to you for instruction.
Here again, Sam is listening without resistance. Fouad goes on.
Whether you like it or not, people are taking your word as advice. So if you don't want them to, I think you have to be clear in saying, this is something that works for me, might not work for you, but I like doing it, blah, blah, blah. That way you're clear.
This is sound advice, seemingly well received by a thoughtful young man. And I'm not even trying to defend Sam, only to assess the situation from an objective perspective. Aside from telling his viewers explicitly not to follow his footsteps, what else can Sam do? He's not going to stop posting altogether. And no matter what he says, people will watch him and draw their own conclusions. Ultimately, we are responsible for decisions regarding our own health. For good measure, I'll reiterate, what Sam is doing doesn't represent optimal health. Which brings me back to my point. Health is not why people follow Sam. It's the personality. It's the no-nonsense attitude. But let's be honest, without incredible strength and more importantly physique, it wouldn't be the same. Now, let's talk briefly about training techniques. I watched Dr. Mike Israetel's video critiquing Sam Sulek's workouts over on Renaissance Periodization YouTube channel and felt he had a lot of great tips to help Sam maximize gains and minimize risk.
Yeah, he's dropping that eccentric real fast. Quick reversal. Man, pec injuries are real, folks.
Dr. Israetel is in the midst of making a great point here, one of several that he makes over the course of his video. He goes on to say that for young people who are growing quickly, especially those using steroids,
pec muscle size can outpace your tendons temporarily. And doing rapid eccentrics on an incline barbell has, in prior cases, resulted in devastating pec injury.
This is the type of advice from a knowledgeable teacher that I think Sam might be open to, given his interactions with Fuad and Paul. And I do believe as he becomes more popular, this is the type of advice he will get more and more often. And yet, he may continue to lift with a just do it edge, since he is a fan of.
But for the most part, the one thing I'm trying to think about, even if I'm just pretty mellow, is just trying to go as crazy as possible on every set.
Yeah.
Effort style.
Yeah.
Going as crazy as possible on every rep may ultimately lead him to make some less than safe decisions under the barbell. Again, in this case, I don't know that appeals to reason will change that fact, especially when he has already had positive results in the gym. If Sam prefers to take a high-intensity approach to lifting, we'll kind of just have to wait and see how his body holds up. There is, however, one saving grace. Listen to what Sam says about his preferred rep range.
Pretty much, I don't like doing below 8.
Okay.
Like
everything?
Yeah.
Including squats? That's good.
That kind of changes things. There is considerably less risk lifting with intensity in the 8 to 10 rep range than there is when lifting your 1 rep max at max effort. Generally speaking, he aims to fatigue his muscles through higher volume or more reps. I believe this was his 11th and 12th rep at 5 plates. Sure, he's lifting a crap ton of weight on many of his lifts, but that's legitimately what he can do for relatively high repetitions. He seems to have relatively good instincts for gauging how much weight he needs to lift in order to land in his desired range, and is not too proud to drop the weight off the bar to get that done.
I've done sets and squats where I overestimated the strength. I got 5 reps, just instantly just got up, took a plate off, made it into a drop set.
Thankfully, his goal is not to lift as heavy as possible, but to maximize hypertrophy, meaning an increase in muscle size. We might contrast this to someone like Ronnie Coleman, who seemingly wanted to do both. A habit that unfortunately cost him later in life. You may want to cue my Ronnie Coleman video up for later to better understand how the approaches differ. But let's get back to Sam, who seems to have found a style that works for him and that he enjoys. At least he's applying high effort to weight, and for him, isn't as heavy as it could be. Another saving grace is that he isn't out here spending all day in the gym, fatiguing his muscles beyond a recoverable volume.
So how long is an average workout for you?
Pretty much 45 minutes per muscle.
Which means that some days are literally 45 minutes plus about 15 minutes for a warm-up. The more I dig, the more Sam seems more reasonable than I expected. His method may not be perfect, but to my knowledge, he's not claiming that it is. Keep this in mind as we examine his diet, and you may start to see a trend emerge. At first glance, his eating habits are...
Do you eat all that on leg days?
So that plus...
Get the idea? Sam is no stranger to carbs, sugar, fast food, dairy. Sam's full day of eating video was horrendous by healthy living standards. Fuad mentions this on the podcast.
Well, when people see the full day of eating, they're going to be like, what the f*** is going on?
Then I see pose.
Like, how did this guy get this big doing that?
I'm gonna give most people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, come on. Who thinks Skittles for breakfast and donuts for lunch is healthy? No. Following Sam's example here is not a good idea.
So you don't think that that technique that you're using is necessarily beneficial for everyone?
The technique to which he's referring is tracking his caloric intake and protein, but not worrying about other nutrient densities or deficiency like carbs, fats, or sugars.
For, let's say, a large sample to recreate that, I'm not so certain the results would be so beneficial for everybody.
Sam is aware that his genetics might allow him to take some liberties with his diet that others cannot take. He's also aware that his diet may be suboptimal even for his own growth and overall health.
Like, let's say you weren't in school, you didn't have a full-time job. Would you still eat the way you're eating, or is it more out of convenience?
It's definitely out of convenience.
But in order to meet his main calorie goal while going to school and maintaining a full-time job, he prioritizes as is necessary.
Like when I'm at home, like on the weekends, cooking a ton of steaks.
Yeah.
right? Ton of eggs, whatever, stuff like that.
So that makes a lot more sense.
This is what works for a working student bodybuilder who has placed a jaw-dropping physique at the top of his priority list. I don't know. I get the vibe that he's doing what he needs to do under his current circumstances. Is it sustainable for a lifetime? Hell no.
I don't know if you would advise somebody to eat the way you're eating.
That's kind of why I haven't made any kind of dieting video.
Okay.
I just kind of keep that part to myself.
A prolonged period of eating shitty food will lead to a whole host of problems such as diabetes, atherosclerosis, hypertension, insulin resistance, cholecystitis, liver dysfunction, coronary artery disease, peripheral vascular disease, among others. But do I get the vibe he'll be doing this for a long time? Also, no.
If you're going to go push your body to the extreme at anything, whether it's drugs, training, nutrition, the best time to do it is while you're young, and the younger the better.
Okay, so this is a bit of a hot take that could be easily misconstrued, and before I even comment on what Larry Wheels just said, I want to make something else clear. We need to talk about these things, uncomfortable though they may be, because honestly, when something is stigmatized, those who pursue risky behavior do so with less knowledge and under less safe conditions. And while the amount of available information is at an all-time high, PED usage isn't exactly accepted in the medical field, which of course I also understand, since it could, well, kill you. With that said, Larry is not wrong. Young people tend to have a greater capacity for recovery. Or more accurately, there is a greater margin between maximal exertion and disaster in young people than there is in older people. The metabolic processes of young cells and organs are much more efficient and robust than they are in older cells and organs that have accumulated a lifetime of physical damage and damage at the molecular level. This is why jobs that incur a high level of physical strain on the worker are typically carried out by younger people. Think athletics. Most athletes have a shelf life. So you can recover better younger, and therefore you may have more leeway to experiment then. However, I wonder to what degree experimenting with PEDs at a young age would help or hinder one's eventual success in the bodybuilding field.
Could he not have done half the cycle that he took and got smaller gains, sure, but still been enough to keep going with the sport?
While writing this video, it occurred to me that one argument that might actually change the perspective of aspiring bodybuilders is that bodybuilding is a sport that can afford competitors more time than other sports. Keep in mind that Ronnie Coleman started competing for the Mr. Olympia title at 28, but failed to win it until he turned 34 in 1998. Dorian Yates was 29 when he won his first Mr. Olympia, and Jay Cutler was 33 when he won his first. And of course, they all went on to win multiple titles from there. These are people who dedicate a lifetime to building an incredible physique, a feat that cannot be achieved from the grave. Even if not for the sake of longevity, any aspiring Mr. Olympia will want to consider their health because without it, they won't have enough time to develop and maintain a world-class physique.
Like a lot of people come up to me in the gym and they're like, if I take this, this, and that, will I look like you? I tell them to stay away from it. I tell them not to start it.
If winning competitions is the goal, there may not actually be as big a rush as people sometimes feel. Maybe bodybuilding is to some degree more akin to a long-distance race. Does heavy experimentation with reckless diet and PEDs get competitors closer to the finish line? Honestly, probably not. Coincidentally, Sam has already come to the same conclusion.
You know, if I've got as much time as I want to prepare, I want to get crazy first, so that it's almost no question, hypothetically.
He doesn't seem to be rushing. Fouad sums it up succinctly here.
So you're being very methodical in your approach to the ultimate goal. That's kind of like the way you planned it out.
Yeah.
Throughout my research, this methodical side of Sam did in fact reveal itself to me. To answer the question posed in this video's title, Sam Sulek Recipe for Disaster, well, perhaps not entirely. Truly, only time will tell. In my reflections, I try to remove the stigma related to risky behaviors in order to analyze Sam and his role as a fitness influencer or bodybuilding from multiple angles. As always, my goal is to promote healthy living and help minimize risk for those whose goals place something above health in the priority hierarchy. This type of unbiased reflection and information is why, in my opinion, people appreciate Derek from More Plates, More Dates so much. Education and information without stigma is both rare and mega important. Here's what he had to say at the end of a short discussion that he had with Zach Thielander about Sam Sulek.
Yeah, I don't know what he should do either, because it's like...
Just keep doing it, dude.
Yeah, hey, whatever he's doing is working.
They quickly discussed Sam's steroid use and video style, and as they spoke, and at the end of the convo, Derek left us with an I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but this I don't know strikes me as pretty insightful. From a health and longevity perspective, perhaps Sam should tone it down. But for the last time, that's not his goal. His goal is to get jacked and eventually compete. And his attitude, physique, and approach to training have garnered him so much positive feedback from a society that rightly or wrongly values a lot of what he has to offer that I would understand if Sam just keeps doing what he's doing. So I guess it's complicated. Rich Piana was quite transparent about his goals and his steroid use. In the end, it cost him his life. He died doing what he loved. Was it worth it? Only Rich will know the answer to that question. In the same vein, only Sam will know if his actions are worth the results, and possibly also the consequences. As long as he is honest with his viewers and does not try to play off his actions as an approach to health and wellness, we and Sam will have to wait to find out.
I don't know. I think it's just a little bit, I almost want to say it's too much. It's like, to an extent, I almost feel like I'm getting too pumped.
Be sure to let me know what you think about Sam Sulek and his priorities in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe and give it a big thumbs up. If you didn't, be sure to let me know why in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to follow me at my online gym, Human 2.0, for free right here on YouTube, where we help you move better and prevent injury. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.